This is the Ross Grimsley Show. The Ross Grimsley Show is presented by Mobil 1. Mobil 1 full synthetic motor oil helps extend engine life. Visit your local Jiffy Lube service center and ask for Mobil 1. Now, here's the old left-hander, Ross Grimsley.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. As usual, Kyle Ottenheimer joining me again.
Morning, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing great. We're coming from the live Casino Hotel studio. Beautiful day. I was whining before, my arms hurt. I had, like I told you, the shingle shot and the flu shot. So if you hear me whimpering over here a little bit.
Understandable. You know, it's, for a pitcher, I can't imagine you've ever dealt with arm soreness in your life. So this is probably a new experience.
I was making fun of my wife last night. I go, come on, suck it up. And this morning I'm going, gee, many Christmas, it's a fever and whatever.
So was there any reflex in you to get out the ace bandage and some ice?
No, she said, let's ice it. I go, I'm not icing this. It was a shot. The hell with it. I ain't doing it. But anyway, well, let's get some business out of the way. And I know we talk about this every morning. We're on here about Costa's Inn, 4100 North Point Boulevard. It's crab time. I mean, the crabs now are big. They're full. I know. Hadn't been there in a while, but they're known far and wide for the great steamed crabs and crab cakes. They have nightly specials that include crab cake night on Mondays, rib night on Tuesdays, steak night on Wednesdays, and lobster night on Thursdays. That steak night on Wednesdays, if you get a bottle of wine, half price. Can't beat that. Check out thecostasinn.com to find out more info. They also, the outstanding Costa's Inn crab cakes, they'll ship them anywhere in the country. So that's Costa's Inn, 4100 North Point Boulevard. You can't go wrong. Pete and Nick down there, the whole family's down there, and they treat you just like their family. And crabs, got to go for them. And they have other great stuff. Oh, I know. They're really outstanding now, too. Anyway, I told you today we have our guest today is he played high school football.
Well, that counts for sports.
That counts for sports, but a book written about him, Buried Alive. Roy Hallums. We grew up together. We went to high school together, and when we graduated, we went our separate ways. He went in the Navy. Anyway, he was a hostage in Iraq for 311 days. Great story. Wrote a book. We saw him 2 months after he was rescued. The rescue was unbelievable. Had the disc of the Army Rangers going in and get him. We'll talk to him more about it, but it is a fantastic story.
You were telling me a bit about it before the show, and look, I'm used to talking sports in this studio, and to people whose most accomplished moments include, if they're lucky, championships or maybe personal awards. This is certainly a different.
This is a different
experience,
thing. And he is. Talk about pressure. That hell pitching within the World Series in the seventh game.
311 days.
When you hear some of this stuff that went on, it was just. You're just flabbergasted. And we saw him 2 months after he was released.
Yeah.
And I asked his ex-wife, Susan, if we can ask anything.
Sure.
He goes, she asked him anything. 2 months. He lost about 50 pounds.
Wow.
But he was able to, he was on CNN, Leslie Stahl, I think that's her name. Yeah, Leslie Stahl, 60 Minutes.
Okay.
And tells a story, calm. He was never just a calm, low-key guy. We'll get to it later, but yeah.
Pretty fascinating.
It's unbelievable.
Harrowing to say the least.
It's a great story, but yeah. Anyway, the playoffs, that has been. Have you watched?
I've watched a decent bit, and it's off and on here and there. It seems like there's a game on
all the time. I know.
Anytime you want to put a game on, you have the ability. It feels like.
But the Houston Tampa Bay just jumped all over Houston and Greinke and jumped on Miley.
You don't think that? It's going to be one more game probably.
More than likely.
Verlander
it's
scheduled to
Verlander against today against Castillo. They're using their bullpen, but it's. You got Verlander. You got Cole tomorrow or the next day if you need be. So I think they got a soft spot,
and I think they probably pitched all the guys they don't care about that much yesterday.
To say
they're rested with the guys they.
But one of the things they talk about, Houston will probably go. Well, they're going to play the Yankees, who are playing real well. We'll get to them in a second. But one of the things they talk about, you got Cole, Verlander. Greinke doesn't pitch well in the playoffs.
He's got 5 earned runs.
Six earned runs in 3 2/3 innings. He has, I think, a 7.56 earned run average in playoff ball.
Do you believe how much of a factor is that intangible with pitchers when it becomes playoff time, right? Like the discussion that Scherzer hasn't pitched well in the playoffs. For a pitcher like Max Scherzer, who over 162 game stretch, after 162 game stretch, has demonstrated that they are consistently one of the best pitchers in baseball.
Well,
you can throw Greinke.
You watched that game last night, correct?
Yeah.
He was done. He was wore out, and he has put everything into every pitch that he's thrown in this series, and got 7 innings. What was it? 7 innings. 4 hits, 1 run, 3 strikeouts, or 3 base on ball, 7 strikes. 109 pitches, 79 strikes.
Well, for a guy that was more, look, we talk about his stuff, his velocity. That was more like pitchability. That was
he pitched. Right. I mean, when he walked the bases loaded, wait a minute. It looks like, and he was missing big time because he tried. What happens when you lose your stuff? You try to add extra. You add extra, you're going to take away from your command.
Yep.
Finally, he got it back, and the big pitch was the first pitch after he had the bases loaded. He threw a breaking ball. Great breaking ball, strike 1. He was looking heater because they do that. That is the smart. There's nothing that tells you to do that other than
who don't have the fastball pitch, right? Like you have to pitch backwards.
You're guessing. I mean, you're wild. Most smart hitters will go. He's got to throw a strike, and he's going to throw a strike with the best pitch he can throw a strike with, which is usually a fastball.
His most reliable pitch
so
to throw a strike with, right?
So you cheat, and he cheated for a fastball. He got the slider, and he made good pitches. He ended up striking him out, and then he got the next out, got out of the inning.
With how used up, and the Nationals starting rotation has been, right? Like they've used both Strasburg and Scherzer excessively, and Corbin is not as reliable.
They put him in the bullpen.
Regard,
they brought him in. Yeah.
How do you like their chances? They were able to force a Game 5, but
really, I mean, but it's going to be their bullpen. That is really important, and you're seeing guys. The starters are pitching out of the bullpen now with several different teams. So wait a minute, they haven't done that all year, and now you see some things that you would think they would do during the season, play some small ball, and try to get. Wait a minute, why don't you do this before? And it's because it's going to happen. But Zimmerman, perfect example. Ryan Zimmerman hits the 3-run home run.
Yep,
puts them up 5-1 5-1, I think. And normally he doesn't hit in that situation.
What was it, a lefty?
No, it was a right-hander.
Okay, yeah.
It was a right-hander. He doesn't hit in that situation, but
you want the guy that
you got the guy. He's done this before. The numbers say no. But now you go, he has had some big hits in the past. He's done this before. You leave him in, hits a home run.
And I think that it's been a little while since the Orioles were in the postseason, but I'll never forget just even really good hitters will, when they get to the postseason, press a little bit. Like they're hacking, they're trying.
Better pitching.
Well, yeah, but also
better pitching will shut down better hitting most of the time.
And I think that there's a tendency to just be jumpy at the plate, right? Like you're looking for something to jump on because you want to have that moment, right?
Depending on the situation.
But I don't think that's as liable to happen with a guy like Ryan Zimmerman as it would be with, Robles, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was a key move to leave him in to hit because, I mean, that's just, in the game, that's a feeling that you get watching the game, being around the game. And everything could say, no, don't do that. But you got the feeling, and most of the time, if you go with your feeling, it's going to work. But you got to have the experience and the eye and see things. It's just something just said that this, even more so there when you're around it, that things like that will happen at times, and it really did.
So had the Yankees shown you enough with their pitching to make you think that the Astros-Yankees is,
That's going to be, I would have to say, but the Twins, they hit 218. Their bullpen gave up 14 runs, which we talked about before.
Sure.
It wasn't really
their pitching in general.
Exactly. I mean, they were good against. They won a lot of games. They led the major leagues in home runs.
Going, and I hate to be a broken record here, going back to the Orioles every year essentially, where they were 250 plus home runs in the regular season and bad pitching. That's not a formula that wins in the playoffs.
Well, and you look at the Orioles, and one of the things that I got it here somewhere. They give up over 300 home runs. They
would have had the third most. The teams combined against the Orioles would have had the third most home runs in the big leagues this year. Like the Twins and the Yankees are the only two teams that hit more home runs than the Orioles allowed.
There were 58 players that hit 30 or more home runs. That ain't never happened.
Yeah.
That never happened.
The Orioles did their part as well.
Oh, yeah.
They made it a little easier for them.
And the Orioles had, where have I got this? Here it is. The Orioles had 10 players who hit 10 or more home runs to tie an O's record. Now, they tied the O's record from the 98 team and the 2000 team. Wait a minute.
Well, 2000 wasn't.
You got some big talkers in that.
No doubt. I mean, Albert Bell was a damn good player,
and
right?
my point is the ball. These numbers are kind of skewed.
Interesting thing I saw. There was Garrett Cole's masterful performance. Yes. By the way, his mechanics are absolutely perfect.
He's fantastic.
Have you seen the GIF on Twitter of the overlay of all three of his pitches? The release point for his curveball, his slider, his fastball are exactly the same. You cannot differentiate. That's the key, right?
Oh, absolutely. You want it to look like a fastball coming out of your hand.
I heard a story where he was repeatedly, not a story, he was repeatedly asking the umpire for a new ball throughout the course of the game. Somebody, I think it was somebody who was a pitching guy, noted that whenever he would ask for a new ball, the majority of the time the pitch after that was a curveball. And because he was apparently, or the speculation was, he was looking for a ball that had better seams.
Had some seams.
For him to actually grip and get some spin on the ball, because the ball has been so...
It's tough to get spin on it, and sometimes you could get... If you got long fingernails or a long thumbnail, you can scratch the ball and raise the seams. Now, on these new balls, I'm not really sure, but they're really slick, and to generate some spin... you really got to finish the pitch, and a big thing, like you said, coming out of the same slot. That's the biggest thing. You try to get guys. You want it to look like the same pitch all the time.
It's magic.
Fastball, curveball, change.
When you see it, it's magic. The way that it's so repeatable and.
No, it is. It is. But getting back to the playoffs, you talk about the Yankees. I mean, the Yankees pitching. They held Minnesota to 7 runs in the series. Minnesota has lost 16 straight postseason games, 13 of them to the Yankees.
That hurts.
So that's really tough. The bullpen, like I said, for the Minnesota is just the overall pitching. But the one guy in the Yankees that is really impressed, and maybe the most valuable player on the team, DJ LeMahieu.
Oh, yeah.
This guy has been he led the league in hitting one year. He comes over here, plays every position. Hits some power.
Well, he existed in the world where, because of Coors Field, we don't know how much credit to give the Rockies hitters when they put up these gaudy numbers over there in Colorado, and then they get a chance elsewhere and demonstrate that that's not a fluke, right? They're good baseball players. Like Corey Blackman would be killing it anywhere he played.
Probably everybody now, you look at the balls flying out of the park. And that was, I listened to the commissioner. I got it mixed up with Manfred, with the guy from
Silver.
Yes, because I'm thinking about that. We'll throw something out about that. But, listening to him talk about, the balls are basically they're basically the same. The players are bigger, stronger, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, right, we get that. But the ball, I told you the numbers. The numbers don't lie. Mm-hmm. I mean, the last time you had numbers like this was the steroid era, where they had the 40 plus guys.
They're still trying to cover it all up.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
And I think that's that. And then the whole thing where Major League Baseball bought Rawlings.
Exactly.
And they're playing dumb about how we didn't do anything to the baseball. We did change it.
And they blame it's human. Humans make this. Yeah, okay. All right. I get that. Come on. Anyway, but tomorrow's game, the Strasburg and Walker Buehler.
Strasburg's now on 4 days, Russ? 3 or 4?
Maybe something like that.
I mean, you could get at best 6 or 7 out of them.
Yeah, I mean, at this point in time, they're going to go as long as they can go. I mean, it's win at all.
And then is Buehler back on the mound for the Dodgers?
Yes, yeah, who is really good. And watching the kid last night, May, with the hair.
That crazy
somebody said something. I go, my wife was watching. And she goes, that this guy's something. I go, look at that hair. That's awful. She goes, did you just say that? I went, I'm kidding, because my hair was so big. But this guy's got a pretty good arm.
That fastball.
Round the plate, the ball moves, and he is. The Dodgers keep coming up with guys.
His nickname was, I heard it was Ginger Guard.
Ginger Guard. Call him whatever you want.
No, he's a guy their Orioles back when they were looking to trade Machado and their names were tossed around. Gavin Lux, Dustin May. Those were the guys the Dodgers were saying, I'm sorry, we are not getting rid of those guys.
Not a chance. And Buehler is another guy that's really outstanding.
He doesn't get the credit, I think, that he deserves because he's pitching behind Kershaw, and Kershaw's that name and the face, but Buehler had multiple 15-plus strikeout, no-walk games.
Unbelievable.
This season.
But Houston today, you got Verlander and Castillo. That one, Atlanta, you got Molino got the sac fly. The Cards bullpen shut down.
Atlanta's bullpen's killing them.
Well, yes, exactly right. The middle of the order for Atlanta, the 3 through 7, they're hitting.
Well, Acuna did his part.
Acuna, Duvall.
Albies had a couple moments yesterday,
but they can pitch around.
Freeman's
these guys.
Been the real problem.
Freeman's
not
a problem
right now.
And a lot of 3 through 7 is that they're hitting on the interstate. 120, 130.
It's a shame.
Yeah, and
because we want to see Markakis as Orioles fans. We want to see Markakis succeed. You want to see, I think, Darren O'Day succeed, and I think the Braves are a fun team to watch. They just did not build their bullpen.
And the Cardinals overall. Cardinals, I think, are the underdog, but.
They're sneaky.
Both teams. They're both equal.
Ozuna is a.
Oh yeah.
That first home run he hit was crushed.
But that will be the Cardinals send Flaherty out, who's a really good pitcher. I reckon, and then Atlanta's got Foltowicki. Folt W-I-C-Z.
They call him Folty.
Close enough.
Mike Foltowicki.
Yeah. That's tomorrow too, so that should be good.
Who has some good stuff in his own right.
Oh yeah.
They're just going to need him to go a long way because that bullpen is really a liability.
Yeah. And the Cardinals. It's. You got to look at the pitching. I think, and the teams usually with the best pitching, and what the Yankees did to Minnesota was just really. You go, wait a minute.
Especially with the offense they have. Right?
Severino came back and pitched 4 innings, and then they run the other guys out there that were outstanding. But Torres 3 hits.
That also he played some good defense.
Yeah, the Yankees are playing. For what they've been through, $90 million on the DL. And they've
that's the thing. They managed to win 107 games despite never really having their entire roster at any point. This is probably as healthy as they've been throughout the course of the season, which is a scary thought when you hate the Yankees succeeding.
Really.
So we're rooting for the Astros over here in Baltimore.
And one of the things that came up was talking about the union responding to some comments about the teams making their comments about not spending money in free agency. That is an issue, and also the non-traditional coaches that they're hiring. Now, I speak on this because I've talked to a lot of people, coaches, managers, and stuff. They can't say nothing for fear of losing their jobs. So I'm kind of a mouthpiece to what few people I can get to. I'm going to be down at the Babe Ruth Museum this weekend from 1:30 to 2:30 talking about the rebuild for the Orioles, which has been some really there's been some good Hayes, obviously Mancini, but Hayes, for somebody that played defense, that's one of the big things they need. They need better defense, which is something, but Hayes has been he's done a great job. He showed something, even though it was September. But he's healthy. It looks like he stays healthy.
You'd like to see him having some momentum entering the season, and the health has been the biggest problem for him. So if he can get a full offseason training and getting ready, then that's certainly.
What are they going to do with VR? He's arbitration eligible, I believe.
Yeah, and his numbers are better than he is.
It's what do you do?
They don't have a better option to trot out there at second base, right? Their hope is somehow he's valuable enough to somebody else at some point.
Hopefully so.
That they could trade him, but
Means had a great year. He showed what was really impressive about him. He struggled at the All-Star break, bounced back.
Yep.
Now, if he can have a good year next year, go, hey, wait a minute, we got something here. But what the Orioles do, they go out and get these guys, these DFA'd guys with good spin rates. I don't know if I can throw it over the plate or get anybody out, but that's what they do.
Well, they're reclamation projects. It's an attempt to,
and they're not worried about winning,
right? Which is hey, frankly, that's the nature of what they're doing right now.
Unfortunately,
for this time, like for at least a year or two more, the Orioles have the ability to experiment in that sort of way. And it's not...
It's...
I don't think... There's a saying I used to say with my buddy where I would talk about, like, going out in sweatpants isn't necessarily going to stop you from meeting a person, like meeting a woman.
No.
And it's the difference is not the difference. Like, the difference between the Orioles trotting out a 10-win pitcher in the 5th spot between a 5-win pitcher in the 5th spot is not the difference between the Orioles succeeding in the big picture in 2020.
And the thing is, it's so lopsided. You know, you had 10 teams with 90 or more wins. You had 4 teams with 100 wins. You had 10 teams with 90 or more losses and 4 teams with 100 losses. I mean, the Orioles were 26-67 against teams over 500. They were 28-41 against teams below 500.
One of the worst.
So what happens is, I mean, in talking about what they're doing to free agency, you just kind of scratch your head. It's about money. You could look at it anyway. And some of the people they're hiring, one of the things, let me do this real quick. Thing called Driveline.
Yep.
It's
up in Seattle.
In Seattle. They just hired, the Reds hired a guy named Kyle
Brody, I think.
Brody, B-O-D-D-Y.
Yeah.
He is the founder of Driveline. He was a Microsoft analyst.
And, of course, the Cincinnati Reds were the team that traded for Trevor Bauer.
Yes, who is big time into that.
Correct.
And their pitching coach, I believe, is into this.
Who they're bought in. They're buying in. Right?
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. So anyway, some of the comments that, first of all, the path into baseball is no longer necessarily paved through time spent playing the game. I think that would help.
Sure.
But I will be scouring Twitter for the next pitching coaches. Okay? Baseball development system was broken, which is news to me. Filled with arrogant or ignorant executives, too arrogant to understand where the game is headed. I'm going, how dare you say that? What are you talking about? Said this guy has full control of the Reds' pitching philosophy and has demanded that. But he's also going to work at Driveline.
Still staying. He found it, and he's remaining
with his
there,
other
right,
with anybody else in there. They can only work part-time. So you're not going to devote 100%. But you spent 10 years reading about pitching, and now you're a guru. If I want to know about pitching, I think I will. First of all, I would have to play a little bit and have a little bit of idea about it. But to make those comments, first, I didn't know the game was broke. I really didn't. And a lot of people look at it and they just kind of scratch their heads. No, it's not. The game is being played differently because of the way the conditions and the baseball and stuff are. But to make those comments, that's outrageous to me. He taught himself about pitching.
So I will ask you there's a notion, right, that great players don't always make great coaches.
Exactly right.
Right? Because, they can't teach what it is that made them that good. That's an innate ability, right?
Oh,
that's something.
Absolutely.
Right? Greg Maddux can't go teach somebody to paint a corner the way that he did.
He
maybe could try.
You can
be more effective.
You can give what he does, what he thinks, how he feels, what it's like to do it. But some guys can't do it because it was easy for them, and they get frustrated because they can't pass it on.
Did you like when the Orioles instituted and brought in Rick Peterson with the biomechanical analysis?
Somewhat. Some of the things that he did, I understood. Other things, the game has changed to the point where, and just talking to Palmer, guys don't throw as much anymore, which is terrible. I mean, it's a power game. They can't. But the thing is,
well, it's also their inning caps, right?
But everything is full bore.
Yep.
You see more injuries. There's a lot more injuries now than before. A lot of injuries that you never saw years and years ago.
I'm of the belief that when we talked about Garrett Cole, how beautiful the overlay, the ability to repeat the delivery perfectly, right? Like, there's a ideal pitching delivery, right? The quote unquote perfect pitching form. In theory, right? Like you land.
It varies from guy to guy.
And that's like people can make an imperfect or a pitching motion with some imperfections more than effective. Randy Johnson wasn't pitching by the book that they're talking about when they say.
Neither was Scotty McGregor.
Right? Like you can still succeed with differences, but like there's.
But not to the point where what you're doing will hurt you eventually.
Right, and that's where
you got
people question if you're landing before your arms and elbows up by the side of your head, you're increasing the likelihood of having an elbow injury and all of that stuff.
But there's a lot of injuries now, and one of the big things is because you can't try to. Well, if you're going to throw 2 innings or 3 innings, you probably could, but you're not going to bounce back as quick. And that's most injuries come from guys trying to throw harder than they're capable of throwing, and that's what is wanted now because it's a power game.
It's really interesting to see. It's a live act. Look, it's an experiment. The Reds will be more interested. They got the talent in their system as well.
Other teams have contracted those guys in the past, so that's. All
right, we're going to take our break. On the other side, we've got a very interesting chat with Roy Hallums. This is the Ross Grimsley Show from the Live Casino Hotel Studio here at Pressbox.
This is Stan the Fan for Glen Burnie Transmissions, located right in the heart of Glen Burnie for almost 60 years. If you suspect you're having a transmission problem, GBT can save you hundreds of dollars over taking it to the dealers for a repair. Make an appointment for a free diagnostic and estimate. Call GBT at 855-728-1841. Their mission is simple: to provide excellent service at a reasonable price. Go to their website at gbt-online.com to check out all of the 5-star reviews. Let my friend Mark Schwartzman and his GBT team take the troubles out of transmission troubles. Call them today at 855-728-1841.
Baltimore's favorite bar is just 771 feet from home plate at Camden Yards. Sliders Bar and Grill is at 504 Washington Boulevard, just steps away from Camden Yards. It's the perfect sports bar for every season. This is the perfect time to book your private party or take the office to lunch. Feeding clients? Take them to Baltimore's neighborhood sports bar, Sliders, for great food and drinks with some local atmosphere. You can book your private event on the second floor or on the outside patio, both overlooking the best stadium in baseball. See all of Sliders' daily specials or book your party at slidersbaltimore.com. Sliders, Baltimore's neighborhood sports bar. Visit them today.
Hey, this is Stan the Fan. You know we're all hoping for a special season out of our football team. When it comes to dining out casually and affordably, I know a place is special every season. The Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard. Not only are they known all over for their great steamed crabs and crab cakes, they have a couple specials you want to keep in mind. Monday night is crab cake night. Tuesday night is ribs night. Wednesday night is steak night, partnered with half-price bottles of your favorite wines. And Thursday night is lobster night. So check out the Costas Inn this football season, and you may come back whatever the season. That's the Costas Inn, 4100 North Point Boulevard, 410-477-1975.
Welcome back, everybody. The Ross Grimsley Show is presented by Mobil 1. Mobil 1 full synthetic motor oil helps extend your engine life. Visit your local Jiffy Lube service center and ask for Mobil 1. All right, Kyle, I told you a little bit about what our guest is. We grew up together in Memphis, Tennessee, North Memphis, and we graduated in 1968. I went on to baseball. I believe Roy went into the service. Anyway, Roy Hallums. Roy was a hostage in Iraq for 311 days. So interesting story. Roy, thanks for being with us, buddy.
Sure, glad to do it.
All right. Now, let's go back. 1968, graduate from high school. I go to baseball. Did you go right into the Navy at that time?
Well, I finished at University of Memphis, and then after that went into the Navy and was in the Navy for 21 years, yeah.
Now, what was your highest rank?
I was a commander, and those in the Army, they would call that a lieutenant colonel.
Okay, all right. A big wig, huh?
Well, not in the overall scheme of things, but it's pretty good.
I know.
Memphis boy.
I feel the same way. Pretty good for a Memphis boy. Anyway, now you spent time in Saudi Arabia. I know that. About 10 years or so. Then you ended up in Iraq. How did you end up there?
I had worked in Saudi Arabia for 10 years, and I finished up my contract there. The war was over in Iraq, and a lot of people, civilian contractors, were going into Iraq to start with the rebuilding, what we thought. I mean, it never happened. And so I got a contract to go into Iraq and work as a civilian.
Right. Okay. Now, you were in your office, and all of a sudden these guys bust in with AK-47s, what have you, Fill us in a little bit on how that happened and what went down.
Yes, I was in Baghdad, one of the suburbs, working in the office, and it was just about sunset. About 20 guys with AK-47s broke in the office. They came in my office and they said, "You come with us, or we'll kill you." And so they took me down, took me out, and put me in a car, and we took off. And for the next 6 weeks, they were moving me around every Friday night to different little houses, and I had my hands and feet tied, had a blindfold on all the time. And then after about 6 weeks, they took me to a little farmhouse where they had dug out this little room under the farmhouse, maybe 4 feet tall, 8 feet wide. And they kept me in that little hole under the farmhouse for 9 months. And eventually I was rescued by Army Special Forces that had picked up one of the gang members and had found out where I was being held. So
that was 2004, correct?
Right, 2004 and 2005.
Right. Now, this is back when they were taking hostages right and left over there, and they were beheading them. A lot of it was for ransom, a lot of it was for whatever else. But, I mean, did that ever come into your, I mean, there had to be so many things that came into your mind. I had to be terrified about what could have happened. But what was your mindset, and how did you get through this?
Oh, well, I mean, yes. I mean, at that time, you're right, there were two kinds of gangs. One gang wanted money. One gang wanted to make a political statement and make a video of you being beheaded. When they first came in to my office, I didn't know which gang I had. But after I'd been held for about 10 days, the leader of the gang told me they were going to get $12 million for me. And so then I knew it was a gang for money, and they would keep me alive for a little while because they wanted the money rather than, kill me after a week. So.
Well, you in your office, you had an attaché case that had all your personal information in there, and it was locked away, and they never got that. That had all the information that stated that you were in the military, you were in the Navy, so on and so forth. If they would have got a hold of that, and I know now Susan, your ex-wife, who you had divorced a couple years before that, were still very close, and when all this went down, I was in contact with her a little bit, and one of the things she said is, don't say anything about Roy being in the military because they would probably kill him.
Yes, that it was good that I didn't have any ID on me, because you're right. When in Baghdad, people carried around a little black gym bag with all their IDs in it, and when I was kidnapped, the gang didn't pick that bag up, and they never knew I was in the military. They didn't know anything about American culture, not knowing somebody my age would probably have been in the military anyway, but from the draft. But you're right. If they had known that would have been big trouble. I mean, during the time I was held, different news agencies called the Pentagon and were trying to get information on if I was held. And at the Pentagon, they told them, "Well, we'll have to get back to you. We got to research our records." So that never actually came out, which was very good for me.
Yeah. Now, what month was this that you were captured?
That was in November.
November, and I don't think it ever came out for about a month after, did it?
Right. In a case like terrorism case like this, FBI has jurisdiction, and the FBI was telling my family, don't talk about it in the beginning, because they didn't know if they could actually get me out quickly or not. But after a few months, it became obvious they weren't going to be able to get me out. So, yes, first couple of months, it was all very quiet.
They kept messing with you, saying that they'd made a deal and what have you, didn't they?
Oh, the gang members?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. They were always telling. At first, I believed it. They told me that, they were talking and everything was going to be okay, and they were going to let me go soon. But after about the 10 or 15th time they said that, I thought, well, you guys are just making this up for some reason.
Right. Now, you were in there. There were people coming in and out, other hostages, correct?
That's right. There were up to 10 people in that little room under the floor with me, because this was a kidnap gang. I mean, in Iraq, gangs kidnap people all the time for money. Mostly Iraqis. With me, there was a French news reporter, some Romanian reporters, and the others were Iraqis that were coming in. And after their after their ransoms would be paid, they would be released. But I'm still there because nobody's paying $12 million for me. So.
What was the food situation like during all this?
Oh, the food. They in the Middle East, they drink this really hot tea with maybe 6 scoops of sugar in a tiny glass, and then the gang would give me the tea. They would give me like a couple of handfuls of rice and maybe 4 or 5 pieces of chicken. I mean, chopped up chicken.
Right.
A day. Sometimes lamb, which lamb I don't care for, but I ate it, and that was about it. I lost like 60 pounds.
Wow.
Now, I remember you telling, mentioned something about there was a woman, was a French lady down there with you, or
French reporter.
Yeah, whatever transpired with that.
Oh well, I was talking to her late one night. The gang had told us not to talk, and they'd kill us, but we would whisper to each other. And I said to her, how much do they want for you? And she said, oh, they want $6 million for me. And a translator, and I said, "Oh, I'm an American. They want $12 million for me. I'm worth twice as much as you." And she laughed and she said, "Yeah, but the French will pay and the Americans won't."
Yeah. Did they now through a normal day? Well, it's not normal, but how? Yeah. What did you do? How did you keep your mind from just totally going nuts?
Well, I mean, that's the jury's still out on the nuts, but that was the hard part, because there you are, you're in this little room, it's totally dark. If you held your hand up, you couldn't see your hand, and you're tied up with your hands and feet, and you're laying there day after day, no radio, no TV, no books, no newspapers, no nothing. You're just laying on a concrete floor. And so what I would do is I would think about things I was going to do when I got out of that room. Because if you start thinking about, well, what can go wrong today, everything can go wrong. You'd be dead in 5 minutes. You don't know. But I would think about, well, when I get back to Memphis, I'm going to do this on my house. And I've got a daughter that lives in California, so I would think about, well, I'm going to drive across country, and I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to stop there. And when I get to California, I'm going to do these things. And I would think about that for days, just something to get me out of that room.
Were you trained for that?
No. But when I was a young officer in the Navy, I was in San Diego, and we had a Navy pilot who had been shot down over Vietnam, and he was held in the Hanoi Hilton for 5 years. And he was given a talk, and he said he was a big golfer. So he would sit in his room and think about all the golf courses he had played, and he would think about each shot. So that's where I got my inspiration for thinking about something to get out of there.
So with all the stuff that you thought about for that 311-day span, what was like the first thing you actually did? Like, what was the first thing you did, and then what was the first meal you had after you were...
Well, when I got out, or after I was rescued, there were 2 FBI agents that were with me the whole time. And the first day, they said, "Well, we're going to get something to eat. Well, what do you want?" And I said, "Well, I'm from Memphis. I want some barbecue." They said, "Okay, we'll get that at the mess hall." And then I said, "And I want a cigar, and I want a Jack Daniels."
Holy cow! Well, Roy, I saw the video. You showed it to us at the house of the Rangers coming in on helicopters and rescuing you. How did that happen? And tell us, you were down there with a Filipino man, I think, wasn't you?
Oh, it was an Iraqi guy.
Iraqi guy, right.
Yeah.
Filipino. Tell us about that.
Well, it was that last day. I was down in that room, totally dark. I'd had canned sardines for breakfast that morning, and I was getting ready to have another can of sardines for lunch, and I hear some helicopters. And then I could hear helicopters every once in a while fly over, but this time they were getting louder. And then I heard a lot of running around, a lot of yelling. But since I was under a concrete floor, I couldn't tell if it was English or Arabic they were speaking. And then the little room I was in, I could hear somebody hitting on the floor with like a sledgehammer, where there was a little tiny door in the room I was in. And this door gets knocked in. Soldier jumps down in the room where I'm at with his flashlight, and he points it at me, and he says, "Are you Roy?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Come on, we're getting out of here." I said, "Sounds good to me." So we went up. There was a Iraqi who was with me who had been kidnapped, and they took us to out in the field next door to the house, and we flew out on helicopters back to Baghdad to the Army Special Forces headquarters.
Yeah, the CD's amazing how they did. Now they cemented that floor where that door was and pushed a freezer over the top of it, correct?
That's right.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. What are you doing now? I know you speak some. I know you come up here. You're in Baltimore, and you come over to the house, and you're in that black car. And Bird went out to get it, and the soldier jumped out and scared her to death.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes when military or FBI are doing terrorism training, they'll ask me to come to speak and tell the whole story. The military mainly, because some of them, especially the Special Forces guys, do get training about, what to do if they get caught in a situation like this. And so there's not many people who've actually lived through what I lived through.
Really?
And so they have me come tell, what I did, so these guys have a little bit of background on what's going on the other side.
It's an amazing story. The book, Buried Alive, Roy Hallums, you got to read it. You were on, Leslie Stahl had you on 60 Minutes. That was really amazing. Yeah. But Buried Alive is the name of the book. Roy, thanks so much, buddy, for sharing it, and hopefully I'll see you soon.
Okay.
All right, buddy.
I look forward to it.
All right, man. Bye-bye. Amazing. Absolutely amazing story. The book, there's obviously some other things that went on behind the scenes. I know I talked to Bob Ehrlich's office, Jim Bunning, who has passed away, who was a senator in Kentucky, who I knew. I tried to get a hold of these guys, see if he could do it. The main thing was get his name in the news, so that nobody would forget about him. His wife, Susan, and Carrie, his daughter, would fly from California to be on CNN probably every 2 weeks, and would try to say what they could say.
It's unbelievable.
I tried to get the Yankees to let them go to the stadium to try to, and they would to put something, say something, throw out a ball, and say this is my husband's or ex-husband. They wouldn't do it.
Yankees.
So I talked to Terry Collins with the Dodgers. I was in Augusta, Georgia at the time, and saw these people. And anyway, I asked Terry Collins. The Dodgers wouldn't do it. The Giants did it. They flew him up from Orange County, put him up for the weekend, put a big thing on the scoreboard, and that was really special. But a great story. You got to read. Buried Alive is the name of the book. Roy Hallums is the guy, and amazing. Well, let me tell you a little bit about Sliders Bar and Grill. Across the street from Camden Yards, 771 feet from home plate. Perfect place to watch all the home and away Ravens and Caps games. Probably watch the playoff games now as well. Sliders has a drink specials every day, and it's home of Fancy Clancy beer. Go to sliders.com for all the Sliders events and specials. Sliders, 771 feet away. Good place. You been down there lately?
The other weekend, actually.
Other weekend?
Yeah.
You told me you had some
delicious wings, some tater tots with crab dip on top.
Love tater tots.
I'm not a big tater tot guy, but if they have crab dip on top, that's where the story
I'm not going to eat them. just by himself, or
when they're loaded,
or with ketchup. But we put all the other
the fixins,
condiments on there. Yeah, that's good.
Definitely good stuff. But it was delicious as always. Yeah. Everything at Sliders is just out of the park.
Perfect. All right, buddy. It was great. Great having you again.
Always
fun.
See you next week.
Cool, man.
From the Live Casino Hotel Studio, this has been the Ross Grimsley Show. Have a good one.